Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Diane Higgins. I'm Senior Director here at the New England College of Business. I'd like to welcome you all to our complimentary thought leadership webinar, Excel Essentials for Business. This is the second part of a three-part series. Just going to give everybody another couple of seconds before we continue on to the next slide. We have a lot of registrants for today's webinar. Okay, a little bit about today's presentation. As I said, this is Excel Skills Part 2 of a three-part series. We're going to be talking a little bit about the introduction to the basics of Excel, including creating and formatting workbooks, organizing professional-looking worksheets, working with data in the workbook, and simple, basic functions everyone should understand. I'd just like to mention, no need to take notes during this presentation because everybody that's registered will be receiving a copy of the presentation. So you can just focus on and absorb all the material that's going to be presented. For our presentation today, everyone is in listen-only mode. For optimum viewing and listening experience, please use your computer audio. This is very important to maximize your viewing and listening experience. NECB highly encourages questions during our webinars. So there's a feature on the dashboard to ask your questions, or you may administer them to partnerships@necb.edu, and we will respond to you in a timely fashion. And as I mentioned, no need to take notes because everybody that's registered for today's webinar will receive a copy of the presentation in approximately 3 business days after the session ends. For those of you who are familiar with NECB, welcome back and thank you for joining. For those of you who are not, I'd just like to talk a little bit about our college. NECB was founded in 1909. We're one of the oldest colleges dedicated solely to educating adult working professionals. This is really important because there's so many colleges out there that educate adult working professionals, but do they really understand what it takes to balance work, family, and go to school? We here at NECB do. We've just celebrated our 110th year as a college, and we know what it takes to help you and make you successful. So we provide all of the resources, 24/7 tutoring, and a very flexible schedule to meet your needs. We are regionally accredited by the New England Commission of Higher Education, and this is very important to mention because this is the highest accreditation that you can attain. We measure to Boston College, Harvard, Yale, Stanford's accreditation. And because we're an online college, there's no cutting corners. NECB offers a variety of associate's, bachelor, master, and doctoral programs. We also offer certificates, single courses, complimentary webinars like the one you're attending today. And we offer complimentary courses to our partners, which are courses that can help you learn better in your current roles. And they're complimentary to any new employee 12 months and under with that organization. Our mission is to deliver a very high quality education at affordable pricing. And the U.S. Department of Education found NECB to be ranked in the lowest 15% overall cost bracket of accredited private colleges in the United States. So we're really excited to hear that. We have over 400 long-standing corporate and government relationships. With our corporate partners here, they're all providing employee education benefits and development opportunities. When you become a corporate partner or a government relation, we give all the employees an approximate 25% off the cost of our academic programs. So this is really wonderful because if you're a partner that offers tuition reimbursement, then our additional discount will stretch your dollars even farther. If you're a company that is unable to offer tuition reimbursement, that's okay. Our discount happens to help you even more. And if you are a partner and you offer the tuition reimbursement, we offer something called deferred billing. So you're actually able to defer the cost of your course till you get your reimbursement back. So again, we've really thought about how we can help educate adult working professionals. And that 25% discount that I just mentioned to you is available to your immediate family members as well. So we like to help them. too. If anybody's interested that's not a corporate partner, there's a link at the bottom here, www.necb.edu corporate partnerships. We'd be happy to speak to you about all the different benefits that we offer. Okay, now for the moment that you've all been waiting for. I'd like to introduce you to Elaine Moore. Elaine is an e-learning technologist. She has been teaching at the college level for over 20 years through a variety of methods, including classroom, blended, and online. Elaine teaches the programs in the Microsoft Office suite and has also instructed in HTML and basic Java. So at this point, I'd like to introduce you to Elaine so that she can talk to you all about Excel Part 2.
Thank you, Diane. As we get this set up, here we go.
Perfect.
Welcome to Excel Part 2. Today we will learn about protecting sheets, functions, freezing cells, conditional formatting, naming a table or cell, and grouping data. Let's take a look at Excel and find where we use the Protect Sheet. If you click on the View tab, you'll see we have Protect Sheet, Protect Workbook, and Allow Edit Ranges. Protect Sheet will only protect one sheet. Protect a Workbook will protect multiple sheets in that file, called the workbook. Allow Edit Ranges allows people to edit only certain cells on your sheet and not touch the formulas that are out there. One note of caution: when you're using protection, make sure you take your file names and you save them in another file, because if you don't, what's going to happen is if you forget those, you will not be able to recover those. There's no easy way to recover a password in Excel once you've used it. So make sure that what you're going to do is, if you want to use protection, have your worksheet all set up or your workbook all set up, save it, a copy of it, take that copy as your backup, and then go and create your passwords on those items. I notice we do not have total cost, so let's quickly put in total cost, which of course is equals units on hand times our average. Just drag that down. And then we're going to format, just put a comment for these. So I'm going to put our total in as well. Auto sum, so we see our formatting and everything else. We're good to go. So I don't want people to be able to change my total cost, or when I add these formulas in later, I don't want them to be able to touch any of the formulas. I only want them to be able to change these areas right here, because you have different costs and different units on hand per cost. So in any given month, some of these costs may change, and of course our units on hand will change. So we want to make sure that we keep these unprotected and we protect everything else. So to do that, let me stay here in B3, and I'm going to go up to my review because we saw that earlier. And I'm going to say Allow Edit Ranges. And Allow Edit Ranges, I'm going to click New, and I'm going to do Units on Hand. I'm going to hit my tab, and I'm going to highlight the area I want to have unprotected. Remember, if you put a password in, make sure you save it. I'm going to click on OK. And I'm going to add another one, Average Unit Cost. Average Unit Cost. I'm going to hit my tab again. That moves me down to this next section. And then I can just easily come over and highlight what I'm looking for and say OK. This shows me both sections. I could have done them in one block as well, but I wanted to make sure that I know what I have that's available to type into. So I'm going to say Apply. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to click back on A1 because it's just a force of habit to always sit in my top corner. Then I'm going to protect my sheet. Remember, password. I can't say it enough. If you're using a password, save it. Make a copy of the file before you use passwords. And that way you're always guaranteed you have your original and your password, what you need to send out. And then click on OK. Now if I come in here, I can change this to 55. And I can change this one to 25. And I can change this one to 175. And maybe 35. And everything changed, which was nice. Now I can come in here and say, oh, let's just round this up to 212, 105, 43, and 185. But if I come over here and I try to type something in, it gives me this error. This is a great error because it makes sure you know that you cannot type in this location. And the error is the cell or chart you are trying to change on a protected sheet. To make a change, protect the sheet. You might be requested to enter a password. So you don't want people to be able to type into any area because it will come up, which is really nice. But in the area you want them to, you can have it there. You can also maybe change the background of this area so people know that that's going to be the area in which you're going to allow them to enter data. So that is how we protect our spreadsheet. I'm going to unlock it at the moment because I want to put in that highlight here. I go back to home and I do my little fill bucket up here on the font. And I'm going to fill it with maybe just like a light blue. And then they know that's the area they get to type in. Everything else is off limits. So with that, I'm going to do the average, the highest and the lowest. I think we did this in the first section as well. But let's do it again. And then we're going to talk about rounding up and rounding down as well. Average is pretty easy. We're just going to hit the little drop down up here on the right for on the auto sum in this average. And I only want to average the numbers here that I've highlighted in blue, or just the categories, not the total. Same with highest. I'm going to go up and hit max, highlight those. And lowest is also known as minimum or min. And once again, I'm going to highlight only the ones I want. And then I'm going to highlight these. I'm going to drag them over with my fill handle at the bottom right corner. I get the small plus sign. I'm going to click, hold, and drag that over. Now, we have other functions. Let me throw a quick format on these as well. Let me just hit my comma. There we go. So now all the numbers line up neatly. So let's do some rounding. My formula at the moment says equals, it says up here, well, yeah, it says equals B3 times C3. Okay. What I want to do is I want to add a function called round in there. And I know what round is. Well, let's do it separate first so you can see what round does. If you don't know your functions, you can go up to the formulas tab and look it up, or you can come to the formula toolbar and hit this FX, which is insert function. And then this is grayed out, so I can just type in round. And then I hit enter most of the time, or you can click on go. And that shows you round, round down, and round up. For here, I'm going to use straight round. At the bottom, it tells me rounds a number to a specific number of digits. And it shows me the format of it. Round, the number that you want to round, and how many digits. I'm going to say OK. And what's really nice about this is I can just click on what I want for the number and how many digits I want to round it to. Say I want to round it to no digits. I'm going to say OK. That's round. round up, and then I'll do round down. Those wrapped because my wrap is on. So round up, same thing, function. I'm going to type in round up. And it tells me same format, round up is the number and then how many digits. So my number is still the same. Number of digits is still 0. Say OK. So now we can see that this one just rounded down. So it's a standard round. 2 and under 5 gives you zeros. Round up brought it up to the next one. And then round down I expect will be the zeros as well. So round down. Hit enter that time. Same format, round down, number and digits. So there's my number. My digits are still 0. I'm going to say OK. So round down and round look like the same. So let's drag these down. Make you go down one more because the totals wouldn't hurt either. So our round, when it's a 55, it rounds at 73, which is a round up. And a round down just drops off the decimals. Anything 0.5 and up actually rounds up. So on the standard round, it will round up. And if it's below that, it rounds just to the standard number, it rounds down. So those are just some basic functions that make your life a little more interesting. Now, one of the other things that we have is a thing called sparklines. Sparklines are really cool, and we use the sparklines for trends. So I can do a trend right here to see what the trend is of these top numbers, because total's going to be a trend on its own over here if you had multiple totals. So let's do the trend for this right here. So I'm going to come up to my insert, and then I'm going to come over to the sparkline section. I'm going to use a little column sparkline. I'm going to highlight my range. And it's asked me where I want to put my sparkline. Well, I always like to put my active cell where I want my answer, or where I want my sparkline in this case. So I started there. So E8 is where I want it. I'm going to say OK. I'll click OK. And now it shows me my little graph of my rounded numbers and what's higher, what's lower. So we can always adjust this and say this was only 25. And now you can see your sparkline has also changed accordingly. So that's sparklines. To create my chart, I'm going to highlight my categories of oil, watercolor, sketches, and acrylics. And I'm going to hold down my control key, which highlights non-contiguous cells. And I'm going to highlight column D here for my numbers. Hold down my control and highlight my 4 numbers, having to do my categories. I'm going to do insert. And I like my column charts. Oh, you can choose any one you'd like. And then I like my 3D ones. And click on it. And it comes up this way. I can add a chart title here. Let me just highlight that. We'll call it Art Categories. Art category. Now, I don't like the chart being on the same page as the rest of it, so I'm going to move the chart to a new sheet. Chart 1 works for me. Or we can call it Art Categories Chart. Say OK. So a plus sign does something. It gives us little elements we can add. So if we wanted a legend, we can add a legend. If you don't want grid lines, you can uncheck it. Data labels. Data labels are always fun. But you have to make sure that you have to go in and move these off. You can't see them. So I'd actually have to take each one of these and move them. So physically just moving them off. And if you notice when I'm moving, I get that little plus with the arrows on it. See the plus with the arrows on it? That tells me it's a move. So there you go. So if you're going to use the data labels, that's what you want to use them. It depends on if you need them on your chart or not. Chart titles, of course, you need. Access titles are not a necessity, but sometimes you don't know what this number is over here, and you may want to say it's dollars, or you may want to say that it is something else. So my access title, just delete this off. I'll put in dollars, so now everybody knows that that's dollars. So the little paintbrush is style and color. So if you don't like the style, you can always change a style. Or if you think this one's really cool, or that one. Okay, so it gives you a bunch of preset options. This one's always sort of nice. Go back mine. So the colors, if you don't like the colors that it gives you, you can change the colors. You know, if you're giving a presentation, red's probably not the best color to use. This sort of teal color, if you use too much of that, you'll put people to sleep. So stick to like some more darker solid colors or the brighter ones. Or just go with standard that comes with it. The other neat thing is this little funnel. The funnel allows you to make changes. This lets you change the one item that is here. So I can unselect all, and I can say oil and sketches, and I can say apply, or I can actually click on all of those. And then it gives me the chart that I'm looking for, if you just want to compare those two. Or I can click select all twice, click clear it, and then apply, and I'm back to my standard. And then names, if there are other names that we need to deal with, we can here. So that's our chart. Now, my chart popped up here at the bottom as a new tab. I'm going to go back to what I call figure 1. And that concludes, actually, the protected charts and these functions. So moving along, we're going to go to our next item, which is VLOOKUP. Now, VLOOKUP is a function that goes to a table and looks up cells in the other table and brings them back into your current table. I use this a lot when I'm doing grading because I don't want to have to sit there and figure out or do the calculation to know what letter grade I'm giving for, say, a 90 or a 95 of a grade. I don't want to have to think if it's an A minus or A plus or an A. I just want it to do it for me. So that's what this is nice. If you want to think about this, this is a lot like what happens when we go to the grocery store and we scan in that little code on the items, and it returns us what the item is and how much that item is. The first thing we have to do is come over to the lookup table, and let me make that bigger. So I went down to the bottom right to my zoom so you can see it. I need to name this table. Actually, I probably should make it bigger so you can read everything. Okay, so by making it bigger, I sat between the B and the C, and I double-clicked. So I have this highlighted. Now, I need to name it. So I'm going to come up to this left corner to the name box, and I'm going to click in there. I'm going to just call this table, just to keep it simple. I'm going to hit enter. Now, if I click anywhere, and I come over here and I say, oh, table, it's going to highlight exactly what I just named. We can also name just one location if we'd like, but for our purposes for the VLOOKUP or an HLOOKUP for that matter, you want to highlight the whole area and name that area. And let me hop back over here and we will talk about the VLOOKUP, and then I'll explain HLOOKUP, which is very similar to the VLOOKUP. So once again, I don't know, if you don't know the function, it's kind of cool. I hit my little FX, I type in VLOOKUP, and I will click on go, and here's VLOOKUP, and it says the lookup value, so what I want to look up, so that would be my code, The table array, that's the thing we just named as table. The column index number that we want to return, which will most likely be number 2 and number 3 for this. And then a range lookup. We don't have to worry. So let's go through this. We're going to say, okay, the value we want to look up is this. The table array, we want to name it as table. And over on the right here, it says, oh, you want to look up this number. Oh, here's the array. And I want to return column number 2. And at the bottom here, whoops, the bottom here, it shows, oh, X-ray. That's really a good thing to do. So now that I know that that's what it's returning, that's what I want to do. I'm going to say OK. And same here for copayment. I want to do FX. Now, I don't have to type VLOOKUP up here because it's already here because we just used it. And click on OK. I still want to look up the same code. And I want to use the same table. And I hit tab to jump me down. And I want to hit 3 this time because I want the copayment. The copayment's the third item in that, the third column in that table. So I'm going to say OK. So now I have those. If I grab those, I can drag them down and it will fill them in. Now, if you add others on here, and feel free to do that, I'll just do another 1122. 1144, 1177. And what you can do is highlight these again and just drag them down. Oh, didn't put that one in right. 1177. Magic. And it happens. So it'll always go back and look them up. Now, I was speaking the other day, I think to another group, and I was saying how sometimes you want your total at the top. So I'm going to put a total over here. And that way, when you come to the sheet and find out what's going on that day or that month or whatever for these, then you know how much the copays how much on copays have come in. So I am going to do like a little sum, auto sum, and I'm going to come and I'm just going to highlight some ridiculous number of cells. I'm going to hit enter. I come back up and there it is. So my total is that. Just put a comma in here. And I like to keep everything the same format. Okay. So that's really how easy it is to create a VLOOKUP. And let me do my control accent key here. And that key brings up the formula so you can see what VLOOKUP looks like. So VLOOKUP A4, comma, the table is the range in which we want to look things up in, and it returned column number 2 for my description. And over here it returned column number 3 for my copayment. And control accent again brings me back to my original setup. And once again, you could use that protect and protect everything but the code column, because you would want people to type in the code and just have the formulas going down, and that would work well. While we're on this sheet, let me show you how to freeze some columns. I'm going to sit in A1 and I'm going to show you how to freeze the panes. So we're going to go up to View. I'm going to choose Freeze Panes. Now, Freeze Panes keeps rows and columns visible while the rest of the worksheet scrolls based on the selection. So it always freezes to the top and to the left. In this case, I have nothing to the left to freeze because I'm sitting in column A, row 4, and I don't want to freeze anything to the left because there's nothing to the left to freeze, but I want to keep my titles at the top. So I'm freezing above. So I'm just going to click on Freeze Panes. Now you sort of have this little line here that pops up, and that tells me when I scroll down here, I'm using my wheel, say 1, 2, and 3 stay, and I can be way down here. I can literally just take these, just do a copy and a paste, so you can see that when you scroll down, they do stay. Number just got bigger, so I need to increase the total. That's how you freeze the pane. Unfreeze them, you sit in the same spot that you froze them from and come down, choose unfreeze. And now when I scroll up, I am missing my top 3 rows. So that's how we do our VLOOKUP. HLOOKUP. HLOOKUP, instead of having a vertical table, we have a horizontal table. The horizontal table, instead of having it this way, it goes the other way. So if I take code and I do a copy, I'm going to use the down arrow on paste, and I'm going to choose transpose. Transpose allows me to copy a column and paste it as a row. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. I'm going to copy it and then, whoops, copy it, go where I want to put it, paste, transpose. And then lastly, copay is copy, click where I want to put it, and then transpose. Then I would take these rows and I would name them, I'd name them table, but in this case that's already taken, so row table. And if I could spell, I'd be doing well. So if you misspell, you can come to your Formulas tab and go to Name Manager and go, oh, that's what I named it. All right, I want to edit that and I want to rename it so you can spell it correctly and say OK. And close it. Now you have this all set. So if I come back here, I can change this to an H. Well, let's go through the steps. Let me just delete these so you can sort of see. I'm going to come here. I'm going to do HLOOKUP. The value I'm going to look up is the same. The array is row table. And remember, when you name something, you need to use the same exact case-sensitive title that you typed when you typed it in. And in this case, I'm returning a row number, which will be row 2, versus a column. So it's row 2. I'm going to click on OK. Comes up the same. Same here, HLOOKUP. I'm going to look up this value, row table, and I'm going to return a 3. And it returns the same thing. So if I do my control accent now, you can see HLOOKUP for each one. Pretty much the same layout. What I want to look up, what array of data am I going to use, and what location. So in HLOOKUP it's a row, and VLOOKUP it's a column. And that's how we do V and HLOOKUP. The next thing we're going to take a look at is going to be our strings. So let me minimize this. And magically I already have something for strings. So I came up with this a long time ago. I needed some names and addresses. And what happens is they all came out like this. I mean, city, state, and zip code were all together. The street, they were numbered. And I need to break them out into these items. So before I knew there was another little secret code that they had actually added to this version, I would break it out using functions, which were very useful. So I'm going to click here so you can see. So all my data was generated by a data generator, so none of these names are real that I know of, and the addresses are all made up. So it generated these names, it generated that address, and then I had to generate locations. But if I wanted to break this out, just so I got rid of the number, I had to do a function like this. This is kind of funky. Equals right of B2. So here's B2. And then I did the length of B2 minus the find of a space, the first space, in B2. What that does is it returns from the right side of the cell, from over here, the right side of the cell, all the way over to the beginning where it finds this space. So it returns the length. So the length minus either 3 or 4, right? So 1, the number 1 is 1 space, 2 is the period, and then the space is number 3. So it takes the total length of it, counts it, and then it subtracts 3 off of it to return the name of the street. And I've done this for years. And then when I did the city and state, you could also do the left and return the left to the comma. Let me show you how to pull out the city off of cell D2. So I'm going to do a left is my function, equals left, open parentheses. I'm going to click on what cell I want, I'm going to hit comma, then I'm going to use the find function. Find returns how many letters there are up to a certain point. So I want to find a comma, and I want to find the comma in the same cell, and I want to subtract 1 because that will remove the comma from my final outcome. Now, my left doesn't have a capital, the find does. It doesn't make a difference because when Excel takes it, it adjusts them accordingly to all capitals. So that worked. If I look at my formula bar here, it's going to show me that nice formula. But there are nicer ways to do this. The other way to do this is because it's sitting here at the end. I'm going to delete that. We're going to separate this list, and you can do more. You can do them one at a time, or you can do multiples by going to our data tab and going to the text to columns on the ribbon bar. Now text to columns is delimited, okay, such as commas or spaces or whatnot. So it shows me down here what I have for preview of my data. I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to say space, and comma. So having space and comma, if you notice when I add the comma, it leaves the comma in. I don't want the comma. I want to take the comma out. The only other issue that we have here is we can do this, which might be easier, is separate it by comma so it will keep the name of the towns together, versus a space and a comma. It's going to break out San Angelo, Texas, and the zip code. Long Beach, New York, and the zip code. But we don't want that. We want to keep the names together. So let's separate it first by comma. Just go next and finish. And it does that. Now you can do the same thing with this column. Text to column. Except this time, you don't want to separate a column, but you want to go by space. And say finish. And what happens was there was a space before the state, which created that. So you can actually just grab this, and now I get my move cursor there and move it back. So now I have my city, my state, and my zip code in 3 different columns, which is where you want them. And it's a lot easier using our text to columns than it is to remember these lovely formulas. So as we continue, I want to show you another function called count. Now over here I already have a cheat set up. I've already done it, so we can always take a look at it, and then we're going to recreate it. So criteria, I literally went to the state column here, and I copied the states. Okay, so let's copy make sure that there's no duplicates. Let me just do that. I'm going to paste it here. So I copied and moved over here. I'm going to hit enter. When I enter, those dots go away on the copy. If I had just hit paste, they stay, and then you have to hit escape. Now count, I have count if. Count if is really cool because it only counts an item that you tell it you want it to count. So in this case, we want to only count the state that we tell it to count, and we tell it what. So if I double click this, it shows the state. We had named that range called state, and it's looking for the criteria of Illinois here. So if you do not know your format, remember you can hit FX. I click back on home because I like to be home. I'm going to hit my FX, and I'm going to put in count and let it come up with the things. So we have regular count, and that counts the number of cells in a range. We have count A, which counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. Then we have count only blanks, count if, count ifs, counts the number of specified by given a set of conditions or criteria. And just count if counts the number of cells within a range that meet a given criteria. We're going to use the count if. And my range is going to be state. I think that was a small s. And then my criteria, I have to move my box here. My criteria is going to be here, J9. And it returns me how many in that column of states are in Minnesota. And I just drag it down. But it's a very simple formula, count if. If I just want to know how many I have here, I can come over here. We're going to do the total count. So I'm going to click here. We're going to click on the FX. We're going to type in count. And it comes up. And we're going to choose count A. Count A is going to count the number of cells that have something in them that are not empty. I'm going to click on OK. And we know that the name state is highlighted, but let's we can use the word state in there, but I'm just going to highlight this. So if you don't have it named, you can always highlight. And now if you look, it came up and said, oh, that's state. It knew it was named. And click on OK. Now you know that there are 100 in your list. So the total count in your list is 100. So let me just show you a couple other text strings here. So this is another group that I had made up names. And here are the formulas. So you can get an idea of how to put things back together as well. So we've pulled them apart. We have a function called concatenate. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so we can see it here. So concatenate is a nice function. It says put things back together. So we have Adam, Arkin. So Adam, we need a full name here. So to create the full name, we had to put the two pieces back together. So there's a function called concatenate. So I'm going to delete this one. Go back to my regular view. And I'm going to use my FX. And I'm going to type in concatenate. Concat-and-8. That's how I always remember how to spell it, by saying it in pieces. And the first text I want to put in is the first name, and the second text is a space. So I tap my space bar, and my third text is the last name, and then here it shows the name or the items that and how it's going to look. I click on OK. Now I have the name. Concatenate's a great function. Once you have all these names in, and all these addresses in, and you do not need the functions anymore, what you might want to do is highlight the whole group, copy, and come to paste, and paste what they call the values only. So I paste value. Now when I come in here, there are no more there's no more functions. So let me do Control Z. Let me undo this. Okay, and let me show you here. So come over here. So here's my concatenate in this function in here. So now you see that I've put together several things. Let me jump back. Do copy and then paste values. And you're going to hit escape because the dot stayed on. I'm going to do the control accent again. And now, instead of showing us a function or the formula that's in here, it shows me exactly what is in there. And you can also do that for this one. It's a way to split things and put them back together and then make them solid again. So no matter where you copy the spreadsheet, these functions won't go away or stop working. So just another quick thing about those functions. So we're going to move on and we're going to talk about conditional formatting and grouping data. So first we have this, this log. So you get this log and all these people are in here and you're like, oh man, they're all messed up. They're not in the same place. They're not near each other. So let's put a sort on them. So I'm just going to click on the sort and I'm going to actually put a filter on. I'm going to filter by customer number from A to Z. So now all my customers with the same number are going to be together, as we see here. All right. It looks like I have 2 of everybody. That's always nice to have. So that's a nice filter feature. So conditional formatting, we may want to come to our balance. And on our home, we have conditional formatting here. And we might want to say, if the balance is greater than, okay, so we're going to click the greater than and say the balance is greater than, 301 is a nice number. It's in there, so we'll say, okay, 301. Now anything greater than 301, so see this 300, 300 is not in that range. So if it's greater than 301, then it's going to highlight. And that's because we highlighted the section, we went to conditional formats, greater than 301. And this, what's nice here is you can change what that looks like. That's a red with a red text on it. Sometimes that's not what you want. You can even come to a custom and you can change the border or the fill. So the fill doesn't have to be red. The fill could be maybe a gray. And then your font doesn't have to be a red, but maybe you need it to be, you can just leave it on black. And then you say okay. And okay again. And then when you look at it, it's not as pronounced, but it's still there. But you can still go back and fix that. Greater than. Pops up with that. So they give you a couple different ones. Maybe you want it as money, so you have it as green because you know that's money coming in that hasn't gotten in yet. So it's kind of nice to have that as a choice for conditional formatting. If you have a list of jobs and you have to color code them of what's most important, you can do the same thing. You can come in here and say, okay, I need top to bottom. There's all sorts of lovely color scale. So you can use a red, green, yellow, what's really important, what's not. And the lower numbers are more important than higher numbers. Or you could come and do the reverse, or just 2 colors or 3 colors. So you can choose the different scales. There are icons, so if you want to know if numbers are higher or lower, or little shapes, or even red lights, symbols, traffic symbols. So there's all sorts of interesting fun things that you can put in here to know if people are done, not done on a project, what their percentage is. That was interesting. 5/4. Or you can put in little bar charts or blocks. So it all depends on how you want to look at things. You can have like just bars in there as well. And top to bottom, top 10 items, bottom averages. So play with this. This is sort of fun to use, but it's definitely if very useful if you're looking for certain numbers above or below a figure. Okay, so next we want to do just a quick subtotal of our data. So I'm going to highlight my whole table here. and I'm going to go to my data tab, and I'm going to use subtotal, and I want to subtotal the balance. Now I want the pay rate off my customer number and say OK. So you get an idea of each customer and how much the pay rate was per customer. And at the very bottom, it gives us a grand total. If you notice on the left, we have little minus signs. So we can hit the little minus signs up, or we hit the number 2 at the top, and that will bring them all smaller. So then you see a total for each customer number. Here, your totals. So your total pay rate. Or you can look at them individually and say, okay, this customer, okay, and take a look at each item that way. Or you can compare a couple of them. So plus signs make them open, minus signs make them close. Go back to your subtotal here and say remove all, and you're back to normal, except it leaves an extra column in that it was using to create the subtotals. Let's try one more here. Subtotal, but not on pay rate, but on balance and customer number. Okay, so it gave me another extra column. But here we go. So there's my total for my balance. So I'm going to hit my number 2 again. Now it shows me my customer numbers and their balances. Once again, we'll remove that. I have to delete these columns here. So by deleting, I'm clicking on the letter A, dragging to B, then I right click on the letter B, or it could have been on the letter A, and then I hit delete, and that removes the columns. This concludes this section of Excel. Thank you for joining us today, and hope to see you in the next section.
That was wonderful, Elaine. Thank you so much. I hope that everyone found the Excel Part 2 webinar very informative. I know that I did. We have a few moments to take a couple questions that were asked. So why don't I address the first one? What does the number of digits 0 mean? Elaine?
So we were talking about using the function to set up how many digits that you would have in round. So it's how many decimal points that you have. You want 1, you want 2, you want none. So 0 means that have no decimal points.
Perfect, thank you. And I'm going to answer another question. When you get the error, where do you go to unprotect?
Just where we went up to protect it. So when you go back to the review bar.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
At this point, I want to thank everybody for joining our complimentary Excel Part 2 webinar. We will be offering a Part 3. As I said before, we'll be sending you a copy. Everybody that's registered, you'll be receiving a copy of this presentation in approximately 3 business days, and there'll be a link on that to register for Part 3. So please keep in mind, when you register, go through the entire process and get your confirmation, and that will show that you're registered for the Excel Part 3 webinar. At this point, I'd like to thank everybody for joining the webinar. If we can answer any questions for you, if anybody's interested that's not a corporate partner in hearing more about our educational benefits and all of our offerings that we have, feel free to reach out to us at partnerships.necb.edu, and feel free to always check out our website at www.necb.edu for a whole variety of corporate partnership benefits and all of our offerings. I want to thank you. Have a great day, and everybody enjoy the rest of your summer. Take care. Hey, Amy. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Anytime. I love doing webinars. I have no problem. I enjoy them. A lot of fun. Exactly. Yeah. And I wanted to be respectful of the hour. So, I just figured, any additional, we can answer them. I know Elaine may want to answer all of them.
Diane. Amy.
Elaine?
Yes.
Oh,
Everybody's not muted.
really?
Yes, I could still hear your phone call. Good. So I think we're all set.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was great.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Elaine.